seeing Sasquatch, getting close to them, getting chased by them, chased out of the bush. Every Indian tribe refers to Sasquatch as members of the other tribe or the ones of the night. And then, of course, you have some tribes that English translation of the name of their Sasquatch will have cannibal in it. So
Correct.
Sasquatches, what are they? Humans of the night, the bigger humans. And I like to refer to them as the foundation human to what we evolved to be, the inferior hairless bipedal species of Sasquatch Island.
Welcome back to the iJupiter podcast. I'm your host, Tom Franklin, and today we have on the wonderful Tom Sewid. He is a First Nations person on the west coast of Canada. We're going to get into everything Sasquatch. We're going to get into his experiences, all of the things he knows about, his tribal lore, and I'm always super excited to hear things of this nature. So I'm very happy you came on today. And if you keep finding yourself coming back to the show, or if this is your first time here, please do me a favor, like and subscribe, hit the bell notification. That way you don't miss any episodes. You can also go over on Spotify and anywhere you get your MP3s and go ahead and download them there as well. All links down in the description below for Thomas and any of his tours and anything that is also Thomas Sewid, as well as myself. All that is down in the links in the description. So thank you all very much for being here, and let's welcome to the show Thomas Sewid.
Hi, thanks for inviting me on your show.
I'm so happy to see you again. Is that correct? Is this Sewid or Sewid?
Sewid, like squid.
Sewid, like squid. Sewid. I hate that so much when I mispronounce someone's name, but it's just one of those things that you come across once in a while. So, Tom, do me a favor. People who do not know you, please tell me a little bit about yourself and where we can find you.
So, my last name, Sewid, means paddling towards the chief giving potlatch, a big celebration. I belong to the Kwakwaka'wakw First Nation, otherwise known as Kwakwaka'wakw or Kwakwaka'wakw at one time, but our tribal nation is northern Vancouver Island, British Columbia, the islands in between Vancouver Island and the mainland and up into the mainland inlets, all the way to the high mountains. So it's a vast nation of people. Kwakwaka'wakw simply means the Kwakwala speaking people, 16 recognized tribal groups with our neighbors, the Lehwata, to the south of us. And our people are of all the tribes in North America, and I've traveled extensively throughout North America, mainly investigating Sasquatch, but our tribe is the closest tied to the Sasquatch. It's our highest ranked crest. Crests are like having a Rolex or a Mercedes-Benz. You show off that you hold title to the highest ranked one, which is Chunakwa, the wild woman of the woods. So you'll put it on I don't have my T-shirts right now with me. I did laundry today, but I usually have a Chunakwa design.
I caught your laundry day.
Yeah, it's like I say, it's like wearing a Rolex. So, and plus, for my operations Sasquatch Island, which is a website.com, Facebook group, which has a huge following. And my Sasquatch Island Facebook group I've created, and I don't allow repetitive posts. So you're not going to see posts from other groups on there. It's all my posts. And it's designed so that it's the Encyclopedia Sasquatch, so that when you go to it and you read it back to 2015 when I started, you will have knowledge from me as a bushman for most of my adult life, commercial fisherman for 45 plus years, living out in the bush, seeing Sasquatch, getting close to them, getting chased by them, chased out of the bush back to your boat. I've learned so much about them, and then also interviewing other Indian tribes, and me being an Indian, they open up to me. Whereas a non-Indian goes up, Indians usually zip their mouth and they become an UG Indian, where you can sit there with your television camera and your recorder and, ask the Indians about, oh, do you have Sasquatch? Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, have you seen Sasquatch? Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the UG Indian. But when I go there, they just open up verbal diarrhea, I call it. They're just telling me everything they know about Sasquatch, their legends, stories, encounters, beliefs, perspectives, understanding. And that way I can answer those deep questions that people that watch these podcasts want to know. What are they?
Right.
Well, every Indian tribe refers to Sasquatch as members of the other tribe or the ones of the night. And then, of course, you have some tribes that English translation of the name of their Sasquatch will have cannibal in it. Cannibal giants, cannibals of the mountains, cannibals from the forest. Chonacha from my tribe is said to be a cannibal. And when you look at that, the Indian tribes, over 1,200 throughout North America, aka Sasquatch Island, as I call it.
Right.
And if they're saying that their Sasquatch in their territories is cannibal, and this happens over 20 times with different tribes, then we know what a Sasquatch is, because only a species that eats its own species can be termed a cannibal. So
Correct.
Sasquatches, what are they? Humans of the night, the bigger humans. And I like to refer to them as the foundation human to what we evolved to be, the inferior hairless bipedal species of Sasquatch Island.
Interesting, because I was talking to a woman. She is also Native American. She is in Oregon, and she actually did the rite of passage, the last one to do it, in the late '70s. And she had a whole year experience out in the forest, and she's run into. She said it was in her lore. There's three different types. There's the helpful ones. There's the ones that are tricksters, and there's the ones that said that what you did, that they'll actually take you and eat you. So that's just trying to connect a lot of dots, because I think a lot of the knowledge is going to be lost, and somehow, in some way, somewhere, this needs to be somehow documented. I don't know if this show is the show for it or if I'm qualified to do it, but if I can help, I think it's important.
Oh, social media as a whole, when I started being part of the Sasquatch industry or Sasquatchology, it was because of me arguing with the TV, because BFRO, Bang Forest Research Organization, were banging on trees on TV trying to find Sasquatch, and I'm
Right.
like looking at TV and I'm yelling at it, you stupid, no offense to the listeners, but you stupid white people, know jack bugger all about Sasquatch. You don't go bang on a tree. How would you like it if I come to your house and banged on your door, opened it up, walked in, and told you to turn around, get out of here? Because
Right.
that's what Sasquatch is telling you by banging on a tree. They're telling you, stop, human, turn around, go back where you came from. I'm here with me or my family, my clan. So my wife, who's well educated, had a big job with a big corporation. She's in the kitchen, she's listening to me, and she's like, "You believe in Sasquatch?" I'm like, "Or Bigfoot?" And I said, "Well, number one, out of respect, I don't use the B word. I refer to them as Sasquatch because it's a
Right.
native name from a tribe referring to the big creatures." And she thought I was crazy that I believed in Sasquatch. So she sat down and asked me more questions, watched some shows with me. And because she met me in the bush, I said, when you met me, I was feral. I was wild. I remember when we first got together in 2008, I could only spend a week down in Seattle area. I'd start getting buggy. I needed to get back to my bush. And she'd go, Tom, just go back to British Columbia. Go back to your bush world, water world. I'll be here when you get back. Don't worry about that. And that's when she started to understand that, yeah, I guess there is some out there. And she said, why don't you go on a podcast and share your knowledge with people? And I'm like,
Wow.
what's a podcast? And
So,
she had to educate
so
me on that.
very insightful woman.
Yeah. So I went on, reached out, and of course, algorithms and Google placement, the first one that came up was Sasquatch Chronicles, Wes Germer. So I emailed him. He phoned me the following day, spoke to me for 10 minutes and said, is that right if I start recording? I said, yeah, go ahead. And he recorded me, and not even a week later, he phoned me back. He said, my switchboard emails, everything's lit up. Everyone wants to know more about what you have to share. And I said, well, keep hitting the record button. Let's do episodes. So I did 5 or 7 episodes, and that sort of catapulted me to this, I guess
Wow.
you could say celebrity status. And, now I'm on movie, the Bigfoot girl, I star in that, and Amazon Prime.
Oh,
I'm on hundreds of podcasts, video casts. I'm in Expedition Bigfoot Discovery Channel, season 6, numerous episodes. I filmed with Outdoor Life Network this summer. I filmed with some big rock star out in Olympic Peninsula where I live and work because I manage Sasquatch, the legend.com, the largest Sasquatch museum and store in North America in Forks, Washington on the Olympic Peninsula, which is a Sasquatch hotspot. So hot that me and my wife had to say, okay, investigating Sasquatch will only stay within a half-hour radius of the store and the house, which are 2 blocks away, because within half an hour, it's just on like Donkey Kong there.
yeah. Well, where does this all begin for you? I know it goes back to your, to your people, until the bloodlines of your people. And could you like maybe go into it a little bit of the lore, the stories, the of your people, and what connections that you have made, and your connections, your experiences. Where does this all begin for you?
Maine. That's where I was born in 1965 off northeastern Vancouver Island. It's traditional home of the Numgeese Kwakwaka'wakw First Nation, and I was born into that tribe. But I belong to a different one now though because it's my original tribe I transferred. But anyway, Alert Bay. I grew up and I was told, Tommy, you behave yourself. Shown off by the Sasquatch, always watching, kinking on him, children. You misbehave and act up, don't do your chores, don't eat your food, pull a temper tantrum, fight, steal, don't do your homework. Chonocha is going to come at night with big hairy arm and reach into where you're sleeping and grab you. She's going to rub
Wow.
spruce sap in your eyes so you're blind, and she's going to throw you in her basket on her back or stuff you into her fiber sack, like a potato sack woven from cedar fibers, cedar bark fibers.
Yeah.
She'll throw that sack on her back or in her basket, and she'll take those misbehaving children deep into the forest, up a mountain to her invisible home. And that's why we can't find Sasquatch. And that's where she'll boil you up and eat you. So as a young boy, my boogeyman was Sasquatch. So you behave yourself, otherwise you get taken by it. And then walking through the village, you'd see the burial ground. And even though our people accepted Christianity and they still hung on to their traditions where a chief would die, but they would raise a massive totem pole in the burial ground. And it depicted crest figures that belonged to that chief and his family to tell a story of his life and his family's life. But at the base of 5 of them were puckered up lips. I got outstretched arms, big breasts, sleepy eyes. Those were the carvings and still are to this day. Chunafa, the wild woman of the woods, the highest ranked crest at the base of the pole, because that's the power position of a totem pole for a crest, because it carries the weight of every other crest above. And with the
Wow.
outstretched arms, that totem pole is telling you that that chief who died, their headstone just off to the side of the pole, his power and wealth was felt around the world, and he had title to the Chonocha crest. He could display it and use it, and even in his memorial pole, it's used. And then we would go up to the hill on Alert Bay because we would have these great celebrations called potlatch, or there was a practice, or there was tourist shipping anchored out, and the
Uh-huh.
women and men and children were performing in traditional masks and regalia for the tourists or at a potlatch or at a practice. And you would see on the big house floor, and you got to remember the ceremonial big houses we have in our nation, the vertical posts be carved of crest figures, and the horizontal beams, they're all carved of crest figures like the sea youth, the double-headed sea serpent. But at the head of the big house with the chiefs and the set and drummers, that's where you'll see the Chonakwa carvings. And they're always in our big houses because it's our highest ranked crest. So when you watch the dances being performed on the floor, it was an ancestors and happening, encounter, whatever that's coming to life and dance and song, be it a double dorsal fin killer whale they saw, sea youth, a double-headed sea serpent, Kwakwaka'wakw, a thunderbird, and of course, Tonacha, Sasquatch. You'd see and
The
still do at our
Thunderbird.
potlatch ceremonies every chief and his family's depiction of an ancestor's encounter with a Sasquatch. Some of them, every family's dance is different, but the face is always the same: puckered up lips, sleepy eyes, fur regalia, basket on their back, maybe a sack, maybe a baby one on its back, maybe a baby one on the floor with it. All everyone's different, but you would watch those potlatches from different families and you'd see their renditions of encounters of an ancestor with a Chonok or a Sasquatch, and it intrigued me because I was scared of the Sasquatches because when I walked by the
Of the story.
graveyard, all those big memorial poles, it was like monsters to me. They're going to come get me. And so hearing that, seeing that as a young boy, it's ingrained in your soul. It's your
Yeah.
culture. And
And
then dad and I, when I was 12 years old, driving down the Vancouver Island North Highway at night, come around the corner, and there where there's a cement garbage can, bear proofed, and a metal guardrail, there's someone sitting on it. And all of a sudden, that someone puts their left arm down and springs and jumps through the air into the dark bushes. And you could see the giant Sasquatch with the long hair, the soles of its feet, the big long hair flowing, the headlights shining on that oily black hair, the muscles, even the hand as it come off the guardrail. I always remember that no hair on its palm.
right.
And dad's swerving, and dad's like, holy, we just saw a tuna on a Sasquatch. And I'm like, you mean that's just Bigfoot, Sasquatch that we heard on TV? He goes, yeah, that's what Jonah was. And now I'm just like, oh my God, I got to learn more. And within a year, I'm in a theater in Vancouver, British Columbia, because we lived in the city just afterwards, and listening to Leonard Nimoy narrate
Oh,
unsolved mysteries, Loch Ness Monster, UFOs, Mayan calendar, and I got to see Patty and Bob Gimlin and what Roger Patterson filmed, and I'm just like floored. Can't even eat my popcorn, can't drink my pop. I'm just like, that's a Sasquatch. And then Tommy 10,000 Questions was created. I was in the book libraries reading John Green's books and others. And then I would go commercial fishing in the summers on a salmon seine boat with my grandfather when I began my career, and then my uncles and so forth. But no matter where I went in coastal British Columbia, and I've covered the entire coast, we'd end up in communities that you could only access by float plane or boat,
mm,
ferry, like Clem 2, where Les Stroud went. I actually helped entice him to go there for his first show with Dr. John Bindernagel. And then we had other communities that are isolated or logging camps tied to their docks, and there's loggers down there on the dock. And I'd always ask, what do you know about Sasquatch? And I'd hear all their encounters, their stories, their beliefs, their perspectives. And, it's just, and because I have a photographic memory for things that I enjoy, I can recall those stories when I was a young boy, teenager, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and they're always going to be with me. And that's what I share on my social media, whether it be SasquatchIsland.com website, movies I'll do, documentaries, podcasts, video casts. I'm bringing that knowledge out. I even wrote a book, Sasquatch Island. You can order it through SasquatchLegend.com. I'm writing the second book now, And then I do the conference circuit with my wife, Peggy, and I'll be in native attire of native designs on my tunic with abalone and clamshell buttons, grizzly claw necklace, Indian trade beads, cedar bark headpiece with an abalone frontlet and white ermine skin. I'm all stoic Indian on stage, booming voice, talking because I'm damn good at talking because I've done it for a career all my life. And then all of a sudden you'll hear, whoop, whoop, whoop. Sounds like there's a tuna, Sasquatch in the house. And then out of the curtain comes what you will see at a potlatch: the mask, the fur regalia, the basket on her back, and all the movements that depict what you see in my family's dance. Peggy performs that as I talk on stage. That's, it enthralls people, educates people, amazes people. So, if you're listening to the podcast and you're doing Sasquatch conference or gatherings or whatever, sasquatchisland.com, go to the conference page and check it out and get
Right.
us out there because we can sell the house out with tickets. We're
Yeah.
good, damn good.
Please do me the biggest favor you possibly can. Every link that you're talking about, the shows you've been on, your book, Sasquatch Island, please send me all of that. That way I can direct people, guys, in the description below, and go check Tom out. Now, you mentioned there's two things I want to talk about. So I'm here in the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. And here, my girlfriend is a Mayan. She's 100% Mayan. Her whole family is Mayan. People still speak Mayan here. I know actually a couple of Mayan words myself because it still has a good foothold here. It's slowly deteriorating, just like with many native cultures, sadly enough. But every culture has some story about something in the forest that'll come and get you in the night. And that could be in the Appalachians, that could be in the plains of Europe, that could be anywhere in the world. But here it's the Nahuatl, which is the name of their shapeshifter, and like the Nihalalushi in the Navajo. And there are also one here called the Ishtabai, which is a famous witch down here. So every nation, every First Nations, even the First Nations of Europe and all that, everyone has stories like that. So it's not. It's a lot more real than people realize, and you're kind of the connection between those two worlds. So for you, it's kind of like an everyday thing. It doesn't mean anything, like for you, it's just your life. You've had this incredible experiences your whole life. Could you go into some of those and maybe tell people about them a little bit? What are they like, and what when they go, because you do expeditions, is that correct?
Yes, I do Sasquatch expeditions. And, like my culture, my tribe, we have stories, all kinds of supernatural creatures and things like that happened in the past and apparently still can. But I keep it focused, being a grizzly bear hunting guide for quite a few, over 2 decades in British Columbia coast, and black bear hunting guide, wolf, cougar, living in bush for months on end, every year just about. And, I call it keeping crispy. You got to keep focused. You start going out there looking at butterflies in your grizzly bear hunting, grizzly bear, a cougar, a wolf going to get you, or a black bear, and you're going to end up steaming turd on the forest. So keep it crispy. Stay focused. I'm here grizzly bear hunting. That's what I'm focused on. All your skills and all your senses, your nose, my nose, I can smell like a dog probably because of so many years in bush. I've tuned it to be able to be
Wow,
my number
right.
one sensory
Wow.
organ that's out there. So, like people say, well, you lived like a Sasquatch. I said, I was a Sasquatch. I lived out there. I remember peeking at humans that landed on a helicopter and lifting the branch up and turning and blending back into the forest. And I didn't want to interact with those humans. They had nothing good to give me, even though I could smell the peanut butter and jam sandwich while they're having lunch, and another forester was having a roast beef sandwich with mustard, and another was drinking milk and sugar in their coffee, and another was doing like you, having a cigarette. I was just like, wow, I could go for a cigarette and a sandwich and a coffee, I'll tell you that. But because I hated humanity at that time, I just put that branch up and turned and disappeared. So I know what Sasquatches are like. And I keep it crispy by I don't, when I'm out in bush and in my professional career in Sasquatchology, the industry, I keep it focused. So one of the things is I'm a critterist, and the reason why is because if I've been within close to Sasquatch within 5 feet twice, I've been around them within 15 feet 4 times, and I've been around them within who knows how far over 30 times. I've never had what I call a woo-woo event, a mind speak, seen it turning into an orb, seen it cloak, had it climb up a ladder and go into a UFO and take off, hear a bunch of crackling and it jump through a porthole like what's behind you. No. So if that's never happened to me, then I'll never dwell on that side of the fence. I'll
Mhm.
stay on the fence I belong to, which is a critterist one. And I think that Sasquatch, I think they've made their choice in calling of me. They need me to stay crispy and focused and educate on the critterist side of what a Sasquatch is, or based upon their characteristics and actions, what are they doing? Simple thing like when you all of a sudden see something, you turn around and you see a branch bouncing. There's no bird, there's no squirrel, there's no cougar cub or bear cub, raccoon, but there's a bouncing branch and no wind. What it was a Sasquatch who's watching you, and he noticed you're a bush dancer. You're like the breeze. You float through the forest or through the terrain that you're in, and you're comfortable. And maybe you have a knife, maybe you have a rifle, you're out hunting, but you're still a bush dancer. You're comfortable in the bush environment. So the Sasquatch pulls that branch down further, lets it go, turns and walks away. And the bouncing branch is to tell you, I respect you. I saw you doing your thing. I'm going to
Wow.
leave you be. I expect the same thing. And you'll never believe how many skeptics, when I say that to them, go, I never believed in Sasquatch, but every time me and my brothers go up to the cabin, they elk hunt in the mountains, and we've done it for over 30 years. That's happened from time to time. And I'm like, yeah, it's just
Yeah.
a Sasquatch is saying, I'm cool, you're cool. Go
That's
about your business. I won't bother you. You don't bother me.
it's that is so fascinating. So they let themselves be known in the way they want to be known.
Yeah, they'll leave gifts out, feathers, shiny rocks, um, an animal. They'll
Yes,
bring
I've
some
heard that
food to
many
you like
times.
a cat does. And it's just them saying, gee, what's wrong with you, Tommy? Last time we saw you, you had more chins than a Chinese phone book. And Jesus, you got worms? Because I've lost over 125 pounds. And when I went to the beach, there was a dead grouse on a rock. No animal kills a grouse and leaves it there on top of a boulder. The
No.
Sasquatch and the neck was broke. Two
Wow.
Sasquatches brought me food. And I think what they were doing is saying, Tommy, looks like you got worms. You lost too much weight, but here's a grouse, so a bird for you to eat.
I've heard of that. There was the woman I was talking to. She said they had a situation where she was staying in this like cave area where she was making her stuff, and she made a bird weir, which is like a pine tree upside down
Yeah,
that she would set in, and she was not being effective, and they seen that, so they left her a bird to eat. And they were like, "Oh," she goes, "That was them who left it for me." Absolutely, it makes no sense that a bird would
yeah,
be here the way it is, like a ground bird. What you were saying is a grouse. So, or a
yeah.
ptarmigan is another word. Yeah, that a lot of things are lining up with what this woman was telling me too, where she made a small bow for ground birds, and the trickster kind, as she calls them, took the bow and put it in a over top of a ridge into a valley where there's water with a swamp at the end, and they want you to ask for help. And she said when she found it, she reached in, she was in the water, reached in, and it goes, and it said in English, "Can I help you?" And she turned around and seen it and said no, and then walked into the swamp to get away from it. It's just there's so many different accounts, but I'm just trying, through the, what am I, around 150 episodes, something like that. There's stories that you continuously hear over and over again. It's just fascinating. It's just completely and utter fascinates me. And one day I will be up there because I know you do these tours on the boats. And I believe last time I talked to you, you were saying that they like to go out onto the banks and the what do you call them, or where the mussels and things are, and actually go into the water and eat the shellfish.
Well, no, low tide comes out, especially at night, because they're the humans of the night. The buffet table's set. Every tide is different. We got small tides, medium tides, big tides, super big tides. And a super big tide means a minus or a zero tide low. It's a huge part of the beach is exposed. Some of our clams called gooey ducks are that big with a siphon almost 5 feet long. There's probably 5 to 8 pounds of meat in that one shellfish. And then you got mussels that some of the purple black mussels are 14, 15 inches long. There's
Wow.
well over a pound and a half of meat inside there. The average ones, though, they're small, little 4 inches, 3 inches, but still a lot of meat. And then, of course, your butter clams, your cockles, which are the favorite food of the Sasquatch and the Bakwus, the little people, the little hair covered ones. That's a whole different episode. We'll do that later.
Oh
But
yeah, we
anyway,
can do that.
those are two foods that a food that both of those creatures and we humans love. It's called cockle. It's, you dig 300 pounds of clams, you might get half a dozen cockles. But if you go to a cockle beach and use a rake, you'll get 300 pounds of cockles. And that's usually where the Sasquatch, Junafa, and the Bakwus, the little people are, because that's where all the high, heavy concentration of cockles are. And at low tide, you got rollover rocks in Pacific Northwest, and there's hundreds of little baby, well, not baby, there's a shore crabs, but they get to be about 3 inches in diameter. Most of them are about the size of a silver dollar, a big peso. And eels, little fish called bullheads in the tide pools, as well as under the rocks when you roll them over. So a lot of people talk about, oh, we're anchored out and we could hear on the beach at low tide clicking. Why were the bears clicking? It wasn't bears clicking. What it was Sasquatch grabbing either mussels or cockles, because you can't stick a thumbnail in there and open them up, and they don't have tools. So what they do is smash the shellfish, eat the meat, move over, grab another cockle, click, click, eat it. And then other people say we could hear rocks being rolled over. Bears do that. We've seen that. They're eating the crabs and eels underneath, but these were really big boulders. You could like the next day when we went ashore, we could tell on the next low tide that those were, you know, 500-pound boulders that were being rolled over. What's Sasquatch rolling them over? Because underneath at low tide are octopus hiding. And those octopus could be anywhere from the size of a squid, 6 inches, right up to a 160-pound monster octopus with arms as thicker than human arms. They're
Wow.
big. That's a lot of food there. So low tide is where the Sasquatches go. And that's why I tell people if you're looking for Sasquatch and you go into North America, otherwise known as Sasquatch Island or Turtle Island to we
Tur-
Indians.
Turtle Island. I remember that. Right.
Well, because it looks like a turtle from space. So I'm not getting into that. I do Sasquatches, not UFOs. How my ancestors knew North America looked like a turtle, beyond me. And
How they knew that, you have no idea.
yeah, I'm not going to get into that. We'll stick to Sasquatches, keep it crispy. But Sasquatch Island, I tell people, stay out of the pubic hair. And they go, what do you mean by that? And it's
Yeah.
like a pubic patch, male or female, that hasn't been trimmed. It's you can't see daylight through that thing. It's like a black hole. And stay out of the forest. You're never going to see a Sasquatch in there. You might, if you're lucky, like Bob Gimlin and Paul Freeman and one person who filmed the Independence Day Mother with Baby and a few others, you might luck out. But the majority, if you study the investigators and the egomaniacs who call themselves researchers, because there is no Sasquatch researcher to date, when someone gets their picture with a Sasquatch on the cover of National Geographic, like Diane Fossey and Jane Goodall, because they're having an interaction with Sasquatch, then they become a researcher. If someone says they're a researcher right now, they're egomaniac, full of it. And we're all stumbling, bumbling investigators. But when you go investigate, why go into the pubic patch, the forest? You're never going to see shit. So what you need to do is go to those open expanses. We're in the middle of October here in the Pacific Northwest, cornfields where apple trees are, where fruit trees are, and orchards, because they're open areas and they're full of food and full of Sasquatch. Salmon rivers, the open rivers and banks and gravel bars, wherever we have a formula in British Columbia. Every 10 kilometers of river, which is 7 miles. So every 7 miles of a river that has optimum shallow water riffles going from shore to shore. In other words, a shallow spot, little
Hmm.
boulder field. Well, the salmon, steelhead, and trout don't go into those shallow riffles during the day on most accounts because eagles, wolves, raccoons, bears will get them. So they know to stay in the deep pools. And that's why when you go fishing, you don't see your fish hitting your hook most of the time because it's
Most,
going down 10 or 12 feet. and all of a sudden your bobber goes down or your rob tip bends and you set that hook because the fish are in the deep hold until nighttime. And then, just like World War I personnel going up the ladders across the barbed wire,
Mm.
storming into no man's land. Well, the no man's land, which is open to be killed, is the shallow riffles. And as the salmon at nighttime go up in the thousands up the riffles, Sasquatch is standing there ankle deep, bending down and picking up salmon, put one in his mouth or put one in his belly, put one in his mouth, one in each hand, walk into the forest, feeds his family for the next 24 to 48 hours. So for every 7 miles of that optimum riffle in a river section, there'll be a factor of 4 Sasquatches, is what we've established. So where I'm living on the Olympic Peninsula, even though I'm a British Columbia, Vancouver Island boy, I work there, but living over there is a Sasquatch hotspot with numerous rivers. And I did the formula when a year and a half ago when I moved there, the factor of 4 formula, and we get a number of 168 to 224 Sasquatches just on the Olympic Peninsula of Washington, and
Wow.
over 1,000 just in Washington State alone. And in British Columbia, we're looking in the thousands, maybe 2 to 4,000 Sasquatches. Alaska, Southeast, comparable to 1 to 2,000 Sasquatches. When you look at North America as a whole, I've never done the formula, but just running the numbers, roughly, we can guesstimate that there's over 100,000 Sasquatches just in North America. Now we have Central America, which who knows how big the population is because I've never studied it or been there. And then we have South America, where the word Patagonia means place of the giant hairy people,
Is that what it
and
means?
other names for their Sasquatches. So South America probably has 100,000 as well. You can't
I,
even find some of the human hairless tribes in the Amazon rainforest, let
right.
alone find their Sasquatches in the pubic hair.
Oh, right. I mean, I'm here on the Yucatan Peninsula. We have the the jungle on this side. I'm on the western side. On the eastern side, it's the rainforest, a little more wet. And I was talking to somebody. I was talking to I can't think of his name right now. He's a big friend. He's a friend of Bob Gimlin. I can't think of his name right now. His name is also Thomas. And he was like, "Oh yeah, they're down there too. You just can't see them because where I'm imagining, I've never been there, in the area where you are, it's kind of very densely covered in pine forest and things like that, and it's kind of dark underneath the canopy. Here in the rainy season, even in the dry season, but in rainy season specifically, you can't see. No joke, Tom. If you're in the jungle here, you might see, no joke, 20 feet. That's it. You can't see them, and it's so vast here, and so densely vegetated. And I asked him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, definitely. You won't find them there either. It's just they're
No.
here, but you can't see them." So, and I love how you talked about there's still uncontacted tribes even within the Amazon, and think how large that is. Of course, they're everywhere. It's just fascinating.
Well, there's uncontacted tribes throughout North America. They're just called Sasquatch. And down in the rainforest, they call them whatever they call them for the humans that are down there, the hairless bipedals. But they got Sasquatch as well. I've been to the Yucatan. You go to Tulum and you
Mhm.
look at the carvings. Like, I'm not going to make it easy for you, but you go to Tulum and you go to the other ones that's north of there, the big pyramid, and you'll see
Uh,
depictions of
yeah.
hair-covered Sasquatches in the Mayan carvings. And when you study the Mayan carvings, because I studied Mayan and Inca culture for a lifetime, sitting on the toilet reading the National Geographic through my life. But if you really delve deep into the Inca and Aztec art, you will see depictions of the Sasquatch.
Yeah, there's a lot of things here. I've been going. I found a friend of mine who's from here. He's a native, and he was like, "Hey, man, come on! I'm going to show you this." He showed me a couple things. He showed me an old church, an old hacienda where they were made ropes out of the vines, the actual vines, back with the old steam powered engines and stuff. And he showed me a grouping of pyramids. I actually made a video of it where the people who came, the conquistadors, actually took pieces off the pyramids to build the churches. And one of the pyramids I went up, it's in the middle of nowhere. It's like it's known locally, but not by many. And it's just off the side of the road. You're driving down the road, and it's just like, yeah, you got to go in like maybe, I don't know, 200 meters, and you're
Let's quit
next thing
talking
you know,
about churches and conquistadors. It turns my stomach. I want to puke. Let's get
yeah,
back
it's
to
just what it is.
Sasquatches.
It's just what it is, man. It's just what it is. You said something about thunderbirds. What is a thunderbird?
Kwakwaka'wakw in my language. My grandmother told me that she was in the back of Alert Bay where we were born when she was a young girl, her and other girls, and all of a sudden there felt like staticky and could hear that. And they looked up and there was a rainbow swirling like that porthole swirl behind you. It's spinning.
Uh-huh.
And before they could see or do anything, they scream and ran back to the village, which was, probably a mile away. And we're given shit. Don't you go back there? You're not supposed to be back there. And and she asked, what was it? Quick, the Thunderbird was coming. So when we get in, then may as well go down, delve down this path, and now we've opened that, pardon me, that door. Um, People want to know, and I got to start sharing about the Thunderbird and these pterodactyls flying around from time to time that we see videos and pictures of, and UFOs coming through those portholes. And there's a young girl on TikTok who interviews, I think it's her father or grandfather. He's a retired CIA big operative. And she asked him a very poignant question one day. What are UFOs? And he just simply said, time travelers. So Einstein and others have proven the theory of bending time and light in the whole 9 yards. Wormholes, black holes, portals. We know more about deep space than we do about our deep waters in the
Right.
planet. And it tells you something. So with physics and everything and all that, when we talk of thunderbirds and pterodactyls coming out, it's just portals. It's just a portal opened up and a portal, and probably the person who opened the portal up opened it up again in front of the pterodactyl or the thunderbird and back to the time area that it belongs to. And that's why we can't find evidence of the, dinosaurs that are often filmed running around, trail camered up. They're out there. Some of them, yeah, Loch Ness, what do you call it, different lakes throughout the world on the monster belt. Yeah, those are leftover dinosaurs. But from time to time, it's just all time travelers, portholes, things like that. And like I say, let's get back to
Yeah,
focus to
sure.
stay crispy, back to Sasquatches.
No, it's just that you were talking about the totem poles, and you said there was the Sasquatch is at the bottom, and then you said Thunderbird, and I was like, well, let me ask him about that. Okay, what can you tell me about their family structures? What have you gleaned, or what does your tribal people know, or what have they told you in not so many words? What do you know about that?
They are human. So I always educate people. Instead of having that hairless bipedal, I'm superior to a giant hair covered bipedal, they're the inferior species. No, we are the inferior of the species. They're the superior. So when you look at Sasquatch and you have a question of Sasquatch, you must say, what would I do? What would my family structure be like? Well, me, when I come here, my father passed over 2 years ago from this house. My mother lives upstairs with him at the time, and my sister and her two kids live downstairs. They're adults now, mind you, but this is our family home. When I come, this was dad's office. It always had a bed in it. No matter who you are in the family, it was your room. You didn't have to ask to stay in there. It was our family structure. And when you sat down at the dining room table, no phones are allowed. My house, my rules, mom would say, and still did. She even laughed about it tonight. And dad always sat at the head of the table. When I come now, I sit at the head of the table because I'm the
Right,
head of
the
head
family.
male of the house. And if I can afford it, I'll have a potlatch for dad, a memorial potlatch, and raise a memorial totem pole in his honor. And it'll have chonach at the bottom. It'll have a grizzly bear above that because that's his dance. When we used to have family potlatches and events, he would dance the gela, the grizzly bear, and he was pretty good at it. And that's what they'll tell a story about. Dad used to be the gela, he danced it. And above that will be a magenoch, a killer whale with a human face incorporated into the blowhole. Because dad was a hunter harvester for me as a young boy. He would, hunt, he would dive for abalone and other things. He would, because he's one of the first Indians to get a diving certification in a suit back in the 60s in our coast. And then he was a commercial fishing captain and always a native food harvester. And he taught me those skills. So we believe that we live as Kwakwaka'wakw male harvester hunters. We look over the gunwale of our canoe into Kumakwa's kingdom, the underwater sea god, and we know very little about it other than what we catch, see washed up dead, or what we can see over the gunwale of our canoe, which might only be 30 feet into the murky, dark depths. And it's an unknown realm. But I have questions. As a halibut fisherman, we'd catch halibut over 400 pounds, and you always open up their stomachs to see what they're eating, so you know what kind of bait to use. And you would find the beaks of octopus bigger than my fist, and that's probably a 250-pound plus octopus. So, what was it like when that close to 500-pound halibut was fighting a 200-pound octopus? Some where our hooks were, 1,000 feet down. What was that battle look like? Well, Discovery Channel and Jacques Cousteau never showed us and probably never will, but it's an unknown realm. What does it look like at night when you're looking up at the surface of the water and there's phosphorescence and it's fish are shooting about all different sizes and porpoise, dolphin, seal, whale are chasing them, and it's just an explosion of light show like falling stars and comets streaking across the heavens. What does it look like from beneath looking up at it? Because I've only looked from a boat down upon it and I can only see the surface shoots. But what does it look like underneath or beside it? Those questions will be answered when I die. When my breath leaves my mouth and nose, my next breath will come from a blowhole. My human spirit will be born with a baby into a baby killer whale. And that mage noch, as it lives its life, the killer whale for some 60 to 80 years will live. And I'll journey with it into Kumakwa's kingdom. And I will get all of the answers to my questions and more just by living it, seeing it, breathing it, feeling it, tasting it. And then when the killer whale and I's spirits, when he dies, will separate and go to our everlasting heavens. And that to me, putting the killer whale on Dad's memorial pole epitomizes him being that harvester, fisherman, hunter. But above, on top of the pole, will be an outstretched wings of a white bird with feathered horns and blue flecks on its bill and throughout its body, called Kolus, cousin to the thunderbird. The Nuyum, my first ancestor, because when Creator created the world, he created animals, natural, supernatural, from all his elements, but
Wow.
he never put humans. Thousands of years later, Ikegekame, the creator, would come back to the world and fly around looking and realized he'd made a mistake by not putting humans on Earth. There was animal kingdoms out of balance. Too many Kwakwaka'wakw thunderbirds flying with their blankets of clouds beneath them, blinking their eyes and there was lightning, flapping their wings and there was thunder. There was eternal winter beneath. There was no seasons, no greenery, no fruits, no berries, no nuts, no roots, no seasonal returns of fish. And the animals that were relying upon those foods were starving to death and dying off in extinctions and endangered species. There was areas where there's far too many trails made by bears, the maker of trails in the forest, and their trails would overlap and it would become a labyrinth and the bears would get lost. They would come across each other during these starvation times and they would fight one another. And the animal kingdom was off even further. There was too many creatures eating fish. Salmon weren't returning, and the animals that relied upon that were starving to death and dying off. So the whole animal kingdom was out of balance. But Ikegekame, the creator, said, I have no magic. I can't correct this wrong. So he journeyed to the north end of the world where the ice fields never melt, and he went into a kilksie of ice, a big house. And in that big house made of ice, all carved with crest figures, was his brother, the transformer. And he said, my brother, the transformer, I have no magic. You must correct the wrong. Fly across the world, and as you come across human animals, you will transform them into the humans we need. And they will keep their crest of origin, take a female and take her crest and add it to their box of treasure to bring to life and potlatch and celebration forever. But they will have kingan on them, children, and they will need to harvest animals for food, social, ceremonial purposes and educate them never to kill just for the sake of killing. They
Right.
must utilize everything they harvest. And after thousands of years of humans being created from Transformer, the animal kingdom came in harmony and balance. And that's the human's purpose. And so on top of the pole will be that outstretched white bird called Kulus, because that is my family's Nuyum, our first ancestor. So the totem pole, memorial pole I carved and raised for Dad will tell the story of who we all are in the Sewid house.
That is freaking fascinating. Where can you find that information on your about your culture? Where can you find that where people can get knowledgeable about what you're telling me, where they can get more in depth and actually learn for themselves? Where can they find that?
Well, best way is just go to sasquatchisland.com and email tom.sewid@gmail.com with a simple click and tell me what you're interested. I do have my book for sale for $25, and then I got my grandfather's book for I think it's $49. Guess Never Leave Hungry. Cover of it is a kulus, the supernatural Nuyum bird, first ancestor for our family. Inside that book is a treasure trove. We have our cultural center called Umista Cultural Center in Alert Bay. The website is umista.ca, UMISTA, umista.ca. And you could probably spend a good 3 days reading that website, and you'll become one educated person on Kwakwaka'wakw mythology and culture and heritage.
Thank you. That is fantastic. That's just the first thing I think of is just thank you for sharing this with me. So do you actually do tours, or are you still doing that?
Oh yeah, I do everything. I do tours, expeditions, I call them. So, and I've put 22 people on Sasquatch to see, hear, smell, or all of the above with Sasquatch. I had two professors from universities both look at me and go, "Oh my God, I'm looking at a Sasquatch." And and that's to me, that's good doing what I did because I'm one of the first humans to ever do a commercial boat-based whale watch in the world, as well as that summer when I was 15, I did the first ever boat-based grizzly bear tour. The following year, I was 16 and a head guide for a sea kayak with the whales expedition in the world. So I've been around the block bringing people to what they see. I was a whale watch grizzly bear tour boat captain for many years. You'll see on my website the boat I used to have, aluminum 12-passenger boat with native killer whale designs I painted down the side with a friend of mine. So, I've been around, so now I do Sasquatch expeditions. So when people go, Tom does Sasquatch expeditions, don't call him crazy. He's a visionary because they will become a multi-million-dollar industry just like the whales, bears, and sea kayaking and throughout the world in North America. So
Why do
with
you
the expeditions, I always tell people, wipe the concrete dust off your body and snap the city out of your mentality. What is your date and time of your expedition? Oh, go to hell. My expeditions are your expeditions based upon your budget and your time schedule. But you might phone me and say, look, I'm thinking of coming out in November to do a Sasquatch expedition with you. Okay, I'm looking at the tide table right now, and I'm going to email you the optimum dates of the huge nighttime low tides. And the
right?
ones that are red are the ones you might want to book because they're going to be a big low tide about an hour and a half after dark, which instead of sitting there on the cold beach edge at 1:30 in the morning for the 2:30 low tide, you might want to book the red dates and do your phone and say, okay, I've booked my schedule and everything. I'll be there on November, whatever. And I'll say, okay, I'll see you in Forks when you get here and we'll go investigating day and night. We got over $60,000 worth of infrared and heat vision binoculars and scopes and you name it. We have parabolic listening devices. We have over 20 trail cameras active out there right now, three of which are cell phones. So when you come with us, we'll program the cell phone. So if something activates one, you'll see it live on your phone. And we'll bring you to places where, I'm getting weekly reports, but sometimes daily when it's heavy activity at the store. People, modern day smoke signal, Facebook and Facebook Messenger, everyone's reaching out to me. So you come to Forks, Washington, or else you tell me, well, I'm Canadian, I can't get into the US because of DUI or whatever. And I'll say, okay, well, pick a time and date and let's go to do it in Vancouver Island. And the other one is, a lot of people, I tell them, take your hat off and pass it around. And, a bunch of you Sasquatch enthusiasts that can't afford individually to come to the Pacific Northwest. Well, I live close to SeaTac Airport or Vancouver International. Buy me a round trip ticket, fly me out, and we'll do an expedition in your guys' backyard. And I'll teach you enough so that you will better your chances to get a close encounter of the hairy kind.
Wow. Okay, so these two scientists and others who are coming up there, so you would think that this should be big news according to what what they tell us. The main narrative is that these things. I'm not trying to be disrespectful in any manner, but that they don't exist. What is your opinion on why it's not like whoa, the discovery of a century, even though for you it's like everyday life is like you drinking your drink there or having a cup of coffee? What is your opinion?
Well, we've had drones fly over us close to half a dozen times now, Canada and US. I've been approached by the men in black twice. We've been EMP'd twice. I went to a place that's very active with Sasquatch and salmon where I have trail cameras out. One of my trail cameras, I check every trail camera before I put it in field to make
Mm-hmm.
sure it's working.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that one, the data card won't record again. So it was basically scrubbed. It was EMP'd, or someone took the camera, pulled the data card, and fried its circuitry inside. So it's not a conspiracy. Conspiracy are, do you think it's happening? Maybe it is happening. That's a conspiracy. It is happening, so it's not a conspiracy. Big brother,
Wow.
big sister does not want the existence of Sasquatch confirmed because it opens up in the United States, the third recognized indigenous tribe next to the Inuit in North, the North American Indian, and now Sasquatch. And in Canada, we have four recognized indigenous tribes. We have the Inuit up north, we have the First Nations, which I am, and we have the Métis, which you guys the people in the United States call Cherokee, the half-bloods. They got full recognition just over 5 years ago here in Canada. And so United States will have their third, Canada will have their fourth indigenous tribe. And we indigenous cost those two governments hundreds of millions upon billions of dollars a year. And right
Okay.
now, we Indians in Canada are more Canadian than Canadian. We know it. So if you want to put a pipeline, a road, a railway track, an urban development, or whatever, we're Caesar. You're either doing it or go to hell, you ain't doing it. That's how
Right.
powerful we Indians are.
Great.
So if Sasquatches are confirmed to exist, aside from being recognized as the next indigenous tribe, they will also have the environmentalists stand up and get their strings and attach them to puppet Indians, not me. I'll never be a puppet Indian for an environmentalist or their corporations, for I believe environmentalists are the worst invasive species to us Indians in North America and elsewhere.
Wow.
But what they will do is they will use those Indians and they will lobby the people covered in concrete dust and blinded by concrete dust who don't know jack shit about nature and the animal kingdom and the way things should operate. And they will put in through protest, lobbying, and laws and regulation, and they will take off the table industry. So, in other words, the identification existence of Sasquatch will affect the GDP, the gross domestic product of both countries. So, in other words, you're a rancher, you're third generation, fourth generation. Your great grandpappy came over in a wagon train and took all of this land here in this mountains and valley of Colorado, and he got our big double bar K ranch. And I'm the fourth generation. And them Saudi Arabians, they want jumbo jets full of alfalfa from Colorado for their Arabian horses in Saudi Arabia. Well, I'm just going to knock down 400 hectares of my timber, sell it, and I'm going to plow it. I'm going to plant alfalfa seed. Bullshit. Identification of Sasquatch, you're going to have to do a Sasquatch environmental assessment plan that will bog you down in red tape and more likely never get stamp of approval. And you will not grow one blade of alfalfa in your family's property. And if you want to make timber to make another condo development or a road or a ski hill or a horseback riding trail, or you want to go do some fracking or some drilling of oil and natural gas, or maybe dig up some coal and make an open pit mine, Sasquatch Environmental Assessment Act, like the Marine Mammal Protection Act, that is keeping us Canadians, which I lead the campaign to redevelop the seal and sea lion and sea otter harvesting industry in West Coast Canada and United States. And, it's tough. We can't get it because of the environmentalists and the North American Marine Mammal Protection Act. So the North American Sasquatch Protection Act, which will undoubtedly come up upon
It's going
their,
to come. It's going to
their
come.
existence, Well, it'll affect our GDP. No more logging, no more mining, no more fracking, no more pipelines.
Hmm. And it also
That's huge.
undermines their authority. It will also undermine
Yeah,
their authority because for a long time they're like, no, these things don't exist, and all of a sudden they have to then say, oh, we were lying or we were tricking you. So they don't want that as well. It's also an ego thing as well. Very,
yeah.
very, very good, my friend. So, dude, one more time before I get you up out here, tell people where we can find you, and please, at the end, if you could be so kind, leave me all those links so I can put them below.
SasquatchIsland.com. Sasquatch Island on Facebook and YouTube channel. I even do TikToks now. Sasquatch
Oh, okay.
Island with Biggie, my store mannequin behind me in Forks, Washington. And I have a podcast page, a galleries page for my art, SasquatchAlegend.com, where you can get my art and other Sasquatch depictions and t-shirts like this one. Don't make me go all squatch on you. And we have my native design Sasquatch line of shirts and shower curtains, bath mats, coffee mugs, tumblers, playing cards,
Oh,
what do you call
wow.
it, coasters, and the list goes on. Like we mass produce everything, my art, and me being a manager and the main artist. You can get a nice tumbler like that with Patty 352 frame done in native design. My famous Sasquatch Lives Matter design that's in t-shirts, shot glasses, cups, mugs, tumblers, and there's some other designs there. So yeah, it's definitely check me out. Like I tell people, like they ask me, how come you don't go to that? How come you're not invited to that conference? I said, oh, they don't like me. Well, why don't they like you? Because I'm too threatening to them. I am to Sasquatch what Elvis was to rock and roll. There ain't another heartbeat out there, bipedal human, that can hold a candle to my knowledge, experience, understanding, and all encompassing of Sasquatch. I manage the largest Sasquatch store. I've been an Indian that has tribes closest to Sasquatch of anyone for 60 years. I've grown up in Alert Bay as a kid, and I've been all through the Pacific Northwest with all the Kwakwaka'wakw carvings of Sasquatch and memorial poles, welcoming poles, and the list goes on. Even giant feast dishes in museums that are 18 feet long of a Sasquatch, Junafa. And I lived in bush for decades. I was a grizzly bear hunting guide for years and living out in that bush and a commercial fisherman for 45 plus years, traveling the entire British Columbia coast extensively, interacting with the people and asking them about their encounters and beliefs and understanding of Sasquatch. Now I'm writing books. I'm in a movie. I'm in numerous Sasquatch documentaries and hundreds of podcasts and videocasts. That's why they don't want me at their conference. They're jealous of me. They have suffer from small penis syndrome. But let's just move on and just get a hold of me at SasquatchLegend.com where I work, or Sasquatch Island.
Okay. Well, that was more than a spoonful. Hey, Tom, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so very much for accepting my invitation to come on the show, my friend.
Well, get me on again. We'll talk about little people.
Well, I would love to do that. That would definitely be the next thing. We'll set it up. Okay. I promise. Okay.
Okay.
All right, buddy. We are the Eye. We are aware. Love you all and have yourself a wonderful evening. You have been watching the Eye of Jupiter podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and hit that bell notification so you don't miss any of your favorite interviews. And remember, we are the Eye, and we are aware.